Hi, my husband and I have always tried to provide the best that we can for our two daughters, 19 female and 14 female. We're both well-paid engineers and have set aside money to pay for our daughters' college tuitions and weddings. My older daughter is in college and also lives with us completely rent-free. We are now having another kid, and we wanted our elder daughter to help out with some childcare things during the day, like changing diapers and also watching the baby some evenings, weekends, when needed. My older daughter said it was not her responsibility, and that she absolutely wouldn't help out with the baby. During this conversation, a lot of words were exchanged, and she, perhaps in anger or in all seriousness, I don't know, said we better not expect her to take care of us when we're older either. My husband and I have always tried to help our daughters out as much as we can, and we thought they would do the same for us. But my older daughter has some very strict boundaries on what her obligations are as a child, and says she owes us nothing. Which is true, but my husband and I had a serious talk about everything that happened, and decided perhaps it's in our best interest to take older daughter's tuition, wedding money, and save it for the new baby, and in our retirement savings accounts instead, given that we would not be receiving any help from anyone else. Our older daughter freaked out, and called us all kinds of names. We still let her live with us rent-free, but it is becoming really unbearable living with her and all the animosity she's showing me and my husband right now. We said we would continue to pay for the rest of her sophomore year, but she would have to start working or taking out loans to pay for the rest. We're not doing this to spite her, but rather to look out for our own best interests. So, am I the a-hole here? Oh my God, yes, the a-hole. You are absolutely doing this to spite her, whether you admit that to yourselves or not. Taking money you've set aside for her entire life is going to cause her to end up cutting contact with you. It's your money technically, so I guess you can actually do whatever you want with it, but it would be pretty evil in this situation. It's not your daughter's job to raise her new sibling. Sure, she might help out because she wants to sometimes, but also, not everyone likes babies. You're the parents, so you figure it out. If you don't want your daughter to live with you rent-free, then implement rent, or have her do mandatory chores so she is contributing to the home she lives in, like vacuuming and mopping floors, cleaning windows, doing the ironing, etc. Taking care of the baby should not be an obligatory chore. Yes, the a-hole. Can you please at least try to act a little less horrible to your daughter? She never signed up for this baby. You did. She has school and her life on her mind, not the new baby, and she sure as hell is not a third parent. What exactly will withdrawing any and all support accomplish? Congrats, your daughter will never forgive you. She will pay off her student loans for a long time, and she will never forget how her parents disowned her in favor of the new baby. You will effectively lose a child. But hey, you just made a new one, so no biggie. Yes, the a-hole. Paying for her college should be done because as parents you want to help her get an education, not to obligate her to care for you when you're older. She's your child, not a caregiver you're trying to prepay. I, 28 female, have been dating my boyfriend, 29 male, for a little over 2.5 years. When we began to get serious, I told him I didn't want to have kids and wasn't interested in that, as it wouldn't be fair to string him along when things began to get serious. He wanted kids, but we talked it over, and he decided he could live without kids. Things were fine until when we were visiting my family a few days ago for my dad's birthday. He saw some old pictures of me when I was 20, and clearly heavily pregnant. He was upset, and asked me what this was and thought I'd had a child and gave them up. I explained to him that my older sister and her husband had been struggling with fertility, and she'd had several miscarriages, so I offered to carry their child for them, and my 7-year-old niece was the result of this. I in no way feel maternal towards her. She is their biological child, and I've never felt I was anything but the handy oven for that bun. I never brought it up before as I didn't think it mattered, and it was so long ago that it wasn't really anyone else's business. He, however, feels differently, and when we left, he told me I should have told him, and said how it wasn't fair I'd been willing to give my sister a child, but wouldn't even consider having one with him. I got upset as there is a big difference between carrying a child and raising a child, and told him as much. I told him I was sorry for not telling him, but I honestly hadn't felt it was his business, as it had been years before we got together. I then reminded him how he had been the one to say he could live without children, as I'd warned him long ago. He is still upset with me. I honestly didn't think I did anything wrong here. Am I the a-hole? Edit. As people keep asking, yes, it's preferred that you be over 21 and have had at least one child to be a surrogate. However, in our country, doctors will judge on a case-by-case situation and will sometimes allow it so long as the surrogate is over 18, even if they have never had a child before. We were one of those cases, though they tried to discourage it. My sister didn't want to use a stranger, however, as she was scared. In our country, the person who carries the child has all the rights, and if they decided to keep the child, my sister and her husband could do nothing about it. I was someone she trusted. Not the a-hole. Also, your boyfriend clearly wants to have a child. This is not going to go away. It is unlikely your marriage is going to last long term, as his ability to father children is going to last for quite some time, and he is likely considering he can change your mind. My advice to you is to find someone who is not interested in having children from the outset. I'm going to say everyone sucks here. Here's why. You and boyfriend discussed children, and you had to assume he would see those pictures if he stuck around long. Your pregnancy should have been mentioned. He reacted on a big scale, and that is understandable, but he is basically saying, you had a baby for them, you should be willing to have one for me too, which is not cute. You both made the, not a-hole but wishful, mistake of thinking that he could just be okay without kids, when you both know he wants them. He is not okay with it, and if you don't have kids, he will resent you. If you do choose to have kids for him, you will resent him and possibly also the kids. Please think this through carefully. Yes, the a-hole, but just for not sharing such a big thing during a 2.5-year relationship. This has nothing to do with wanting children, or having to tell him because he wants children. But I would immediately break up with someone if I learned such a big thing after 2.5 years, and they didn't share it with me. My brother and I are total opposites. As an example, to cope with the last 4 years, I started playing D&D 4 times a week, and he became an influencer who travels with his wife and posts fitness inspiration to their giant IG account. I've never had an issue with the difference in our lifestyles until this week. My brother posted a picture of their new house, and I noticed it looked suspiciously like my parents' house they spent years building to be their dream home. I was supposed to go to my parents for Christmas, but they ended up saying it would make more sense to come to me and get a hotel because they wanted to see the coast. At the time, I accepted that, but after seeing the pictures my brother posted, I called my mom and said I really wanted to come home. We went back and forth, and she said it wouldn't really work because my brother and his wife were living there when they weren't traveling. My mom talked with me for a while before saying her and dad were living in the guest suite. I asked why after they worked so hard to make their dream home, and my mom said they couldn't afford my brother and sister-in-law's trips anymore, so it was saving them money giving them the run of the house for their IG account. I was livid. My brother brags about spending thousands on his trips. It was different when I thought it was their money, and not our retired parents. I went back through their IG posts and saw one about how generous they were to let my parents live in their guest suite. I usually don't pay attention to their account, which is why I missed this. So I commented something like, yeah, so generous stealing our parents' house because you're too broke to get your own. Naturally, he deleted my comment and called me and ripped the crap out of me about how I should have kept this conversation private. My parents also said I might have cost him sponsors and added to their long-term burden. Am I the a-hole? Oh my goodness, not the a-hole. Your brother and his wife are using your parents. They're allowing it to happen probably because they're afraid of losing him and whatever possible grandchildren they may provide. Keep standing up for them. If they lose sponsorships for lying, that's really their problem. Your brother is angry at you because you publicly embarrassed him on his IG page. I don't really fault you for that though, because you were just pointing out the truth after his lies were so obnoxious to your family. What I find very odd is why your parents are indulging him in his lifestyle like this. It's not normal on their part. Perhaps it's not really for you to worry about if your parents want to be doormats. Let them. But again, it's not normal. Not the a-hole. You could have kept it private, sure, but you don't really have to, since he's straight out lying about this and taking from his parents like they owe him their life. You might want to have a conversation with your parents as to why they're funding your brother's life. It sounds like the brother and his wife are either acting like spoiled brats, and that's why the parents gave them everything to avoid their tantrums, so they just enable their behavior. Or they're emotionally blackmailing them and manipulating them. It's probably the first one most of the time, in my opinion. So I, female 47, have 2 daughters, Bella, female 25, and Elise, female 23. My husband is a doctor, and I am an engineer, so we are financially well off. While we don't make enough to be considered rich, we make enough to give our children a privileged life. When my daughters were in high school, my husband and I realized we had around $150K each in savings for our children's educations. We sat down and discussed with the girls about their college funds. Bella has always wanted to go to college, while Elise was more neutral about the whole thing. Well, in a few years, Bella got into a very good, but expensive college, and ended up wiping out the money, plus some loans. She finished paying them off a year ago, and everything was fine. My younger daughter never really cared much for college. She got a degree in business from a community college, and landed a job with a company. As a result, she really didn't need to spend all of the money we had saved for college, so I put it away. A few months ago, Elise was visiting me and she was complaining about a house she and her husband really loved, but was out of their price range. I felt bad for her and discussed it with my husband, who suggested I give her the college money. I thought it over and decided to, and gave it to her. She was very happy and cried a lot. Well, they finally moved into their house this last week, and Elise invited the whole family to come visit and see the new house. When Bella arrived, she was taken aback, since the house was large and in a nice area. She asked how Elise was able to afford it, and Elise offhandedly mentioned that I gave her half the money. Bella didn't say anything, but got really quiet, and didn't speak to me for the rest of the evening. I called her yesterday and asked if something was wrong, and she kind of exploded at me, shouting that I was showing favoritism by giving Elise the money for the house, and it was unfair. I tried to explain that it was the college money that she had already received, but Bella said that she had to take out loans despite our contribution, while Elise wouldn't have to worry about the house loans. I tried to explain my side, but she blocked me, and must have told my sister, because I got a call berating me for treating Bella less equally. My husband says that Bella is just acting entitled, and to let it blow over. But I feel bad, because it is true that Elise has no loans at all, while Bella is saddled with debt at a young age. Was I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Bella needs to be accountable with the choices she made. Tally up the total amount each daughter received, and pay up the difference so both of them have the same share. Chances are, you may still have to pay a difference to Elise given Bella's extravagant choices. I hope with that expensive degree, she would be able to earn enough income to pay off her loans and buy a house as nice as Elise. Not the a-hole. You're in a classic no-win situation, sadly. No matter how this played out, someone would be able to claim that the other sister received something they did not. I do think you should have discussed it with both daughters beforehand, because chances are Bella is reacting largely in response to just being told you paid for half their home out of the blue. With that said, Bella is being unreasonable at the moment. Once she cools down a bit, I suggest trying to calmly explain that you both received the same amount of money, but just used it in different ways. Not the a-hole. Same money, different purposes. Where's the problem? My wife, 27 female, and I, 27 male, were living with my sister, 30 female. We'll call her A, and her boyfriend, 30 male. My sister lived in the basement with her boyfriend and their newborn child, right below the kitchen, dining room, and living room. My wife and I have been trying to get pregnant for a little more than a year at this point, but are having a lot of fertility issues. But I have an 8-year-old son from a previous relationship, who my wife has helped raise since he was 2. On this day, my wife, my other sister, 31 female, we'll call her C, and I took my son and my nephews to the pumpkin patch. I told C that she could bring her sons over to our house after to carve pumpkins. We get home about 7 p.m., and I tell A that we are going to be carving pumpkins in the dining room. She immediately gets upset and asks, well, how long is that going to take? So I told her I don't know. We have 3 young children and like 5 pumpkins total, but I couldn't imagine it taking more than an hour and a half. She isn't thrilled with this answer, but leaves it there. About an hour in, 8 p.m., A comes up the stairs and is pissed. She's saying things like, this is ridiculous. I can hear every time a chair moves at the table, and we're trying to go to sleep. My wife tries to be sympathetic, and she says, I'm sorry, I understand you have a newborn down there, but we told you we would be doing this. And my sister barks at her that she wouldn't understand because she's not a real mother. She's only a stepmother. I could see the pain in my wife's face as this is a very sensitive subject for her. So I stood between my wife and A and said, well, I guess you're not a real mother because you had a C-section. A stab I knew would hurt, because she had expressed to my mother and my other sister that she felt like she wasn't a real mother, because she had to have a C-section, but they had been reassuring her that she was a real mother, and natural or C-section didn't make her any less or more of a mother. For the record, we were done at 8:30 like I told her, but honestly, am I the a-hole here? Clarifications. She was made aware of the possibility of all of us coming back to carve pumpkins that morning when we invited her to come with us. There were 2 other unoccupied rooms in the house she could have stayed in. She chose the basement, knowing that sound traveled to the floor. Why should I have to restrict my activity to a 7 p.m. cutoff because she made that decision? I do not believe that having a C-section makes her any less of a mother in any way, shape, or form. The comment was made because she hurt my wife with the comment about her infertility. My wife talked to her and cried on her shoulder at length about her infertility and her desire to have a baby. We made up a few days later. She apologized for her comments to my wife, and I apologized for my comments to her, and have since moved out and get along fine now. I just wanted to share this story because I just found Am I the A-hole, and figured it was a good place to see what other people thought of the whole situation. Everyone sucks here. She is a sleep-deprived new mother of a newborn. Where's your sympathy at all? She had a valid complaint. You could have held off on the carving for a day. She was the a-hole for saying that to your wife, but you crossed the line saying she wasn't a real mother. She gave birth. Doesn't matter if it was a C-section or standard birth. You all need to apologize to each other. Perhaps discuss if you all should still live together. Yes, the a-hole. Sorry, OP, but in what world do you think it's okay to say that to someone? Guess what? She made a baby, in her womb. The method used to bring that child into the world is completely irrelevant. If you think a C-section is somehow cheating the system, then let me ask you, are the jaws of life the easiest way to get out of a car? Look, I get that what she said to your wife was completely crappy and totally uncalled for, but geez, dude. Yes, the a-hole. 8 p.m. is late to have young kids out doing an activity, and very late for a household with a newborn and a recovering mama. And carving is always a big protracted project that takes longer than estimated. You should have planned your day so that carving would start earlier, or rescheduled for another day, both for the kids' benefit and out of respect for the transitioning young family downstairs.